All right. Hopefully everybody has their clickers. There's clicker questions at the end. You're supposed to watch me on video, not Dr. D. Is Dr. D on YouTube or?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Well, let's get this guy posted.
Oh, you posted it?
I was just testing it to see if I can upload videos to YouTube.
Okay. And if you upload several videos and several parts to YouTube, they'll give you permission to upload a long video, I've discovered.
And you can combine them?
So that you can upload an hour-long video.
Oh, awesome.
But only if you prove that you're not uploading pirated material like TV shows and things like that. So if you show that you have a reason to upload many-part videos, then they'll let you upload long videos. I didn't know that either, but I'm glad they do. So this is actually on video, or it will be on video. We've got a couple athletes that are here today, and a couple of people who couldn't be here for other reasons. So basically the book covers a lot of how to do things in Excel. But it doesn't cover everything, and so I've done some additional supplemental materials. Some of the stuff is actually on the test, so it's your encouragement to pay attention. This is Excel. What we're trying to do today is plot the sine function. And so you basically want to set up your spreadsheet so that it's easier for people to follow. So, good things. What's here?
I don't need to be here.
Your name, file name, what's going on, sort of a title to give people an idea of what they're looking at. And then it's basically regions, what I would recommend. So things that don't change are inputs. You should put over to the right and left. So these are things that are only referenced once. And we have the money here. Why do we have money here? What does dollar signs mean in Excel? Absolute referencing. So things you reference here, you want to use absolute referencing for. And you put them all together. So these are your inputs. These are some calculations. Now what we're doing today is plotting the sine function. And so we're plotting, what is the function? A sine of b x plus c plus d. So, what does the sine function look like? Have we seen the sine function? Hope so. Well, not everybody has. So this is your sine function. What does A do? A is your amplitude, and so A basically shifts it taller, or so as A increases, it's going to get bigger. What about B? What is B? B is the period. So that's basically how long. So B changes the time before it repeats itself. What about C? C is your phase shift. And so your C is going to basically shift you left and right, but it'll still be going up and down. And what about D? D is going to shift this up or down. So A makes it bigger, D shifts the whole thing all the way up. So we're designing a spreadsheet that we can demonstrate this on our spreadsheet. So, T. I should really look at what I'm plotting. So this is T. So this axis is T, and this axis, if we call this Y. So Y is the function of T. So basically what we want to put is our x-axis, which is T, we want to put in its own very own column. This is your input to the function. This has several different values. Your A, B, C, and D aren't going to change as T changes. So these are constants. These are things that don't change. They go up here, and T goes here. That's just your input to your function. Next to it, we put the output to the function. Now, we could have had more than one thing. We could have plotted sine and cosine and tangent and cotangent and secant and cosecant. Now, we could have more than one output. This is the fundamental thing, and everything else is based on this. So we could have had something that was based on this y. So basically you can develop several different columns later. But the x-axis is always on the left, not on the right. That helps. So basically that Excel knows that when you start plotting, the first thing you're going to get should be your x-axis. All right, if you want to make it organized, again, what's useful? It's useful to have labels, period. Units are your seconds and then your value. So, but, can you put 2.0944 to S? You could, but then it becomes text and not a number. Unless you use the fence, you could use custom formatting to add S to it, or you could put S in the next column over. But if you just write S, it's going to be a text, and it's hard to do math with text. I could contribute to the ASCII equivalent. It's just, text doesn't work for math. So we want, the numbers have to be lonely all by itself. Mike? What the heck? Oh, who's Mike? Oh, Mike is who's Mike? Here. What are you doing commenting? I have no idea. I think this is the head of IT, and so Excel is licensed to him. So you can add a comment. This little red triangle here is a comment. I hadn't noticed before that when you add a comment, so we can do that. You can use highlights to highlight different sections, boxes, and highlights. You can change the width of the columns. So C is big, D is just a space. Why is this space important? You've gotten to plotting. Basically, if you start in a region, what Excel does is it goes all the way to the left for an empty space, and the thing next to an empty column becomes your x-axis. If you don't have this space in here, it will think, oh, this is our x-axis, and it's going to just freak out. So this space here is important for you, because basically that will help Excel find where your x-axis is going to be, and then this y will be your label for your plot. You want to label your column, and you also, in parentheses, that's units. So labels are important to confuse people? No. To not confuse people. To communicate clearly. Right? If I say you are 3 away, are you close or far? What? Could be 3 miles away, 3 light years away? Probably not. It had the left a while ago. So units are important. 3 millimeters, that's getting in my personal space. Anyway, so labels units are important in your spreadsheet. Your tabs are also helpful. In sheet 3 doesn't really communicate much, other than the fact that we haven't started sheet 3. This is when we're using references. This is where we're using names, where you can actually name cells, and we'll cover that a little bit later. If you right-click, we can actually include a comment. You right-click on your cell and insert a comment, and you can add that. All right, so that's introduction. Let's try to do it. Let's try to set this up all by ourselves. So we're going to plot A sine dt plus C plus D. Yeah, Excel, you can follow along. And does everybody have a handout? There's handouts on the back table, right by the clickers, which you should also have. So the point is of the handout, this is everything that's, yeah, nice. That didn't sound good. That was my fault probably for putting the clickers on an unstable place. So basically I can't have Excel open and this open at the same time. You have all the formulas you need on the handout. So if you sort of miss something, you can still later on reconstruct what's going on right here. So where is Excel? Excel, let's start a new spreadsheet. What goes up on the top? Name. Yeah, name, title, plot of A sine bt plus C plus D. Dr. Keith, text command equals the today function. What do you think today function does? Today's date. There we go. So probably if you open this up later, then today is different. This is useful if you have something that you're going to be doing edits on, and you print it out, then you know when you actually printed it, so if you have two different pieces of paper, you can figure out which is the new, which is the old. So that's your today function. I don't think there's a tomorrow function. That was trying to be a joke. All right, so there's our today function. Is today plus 1 tomorrow? I don't know. We can try it. On your own. All right, now we want our inputs. Our inputs are A, B, C, D, and then T0. This is your initial time. So in this case, if we're starting at 0, T0 is going to be 0. So A, B, C, D. So inputs, we have A, B, C, D, and T0. If we want to be anal or retentive, we can highlight our 0, and then how do we make it a subscript? Go to font, down arrow, and then hit subscript. Ah, that looks so pretty. So T says 0. Again, you're communicating, and so it's adding subscript. You don't have to do that. It just makes it a little prettier. Just like making that little x, the proper multiplication x, makes it a little prettier. It really doesn't affect the content. It's just a text thing in terms of communication. All right, what were our inputs? A is 2, 3.5 minus 1, 0. So 2, 3 minus 1.5, and 0. A is in meters. Radians per second, radians per second, meters second. So what we have is our labels, our numbers, and our units. I come down here to zoom in a little bit for the people, and now Dave got to be. So when a cell goes all to numbers, it just means that what you're trying to display is too big for the cell. You can make your cell a little bit bigger. And then when we're between columns, you get this arrow thing going either way. If you double click on that, it automatically sizes the column to whatever's in it. Double clicks. If you double click on the arrow thing. So those are our inputs, our outputs. What were our outputs? Our period. What is our period? If B is our frequency, then what is our period? Anybody remember? It's 2 pi over the frequency. Basically, the sine function repeats itself every 2 pi. And so basically what you get is that B times T is equal to 2 pi. So therefore your period T is equal to 2 pi over B. Anyways, if you don't know that, just say, oh, it's a formula. And the professor gave it to me. I'll just plug it in. That's a lot to this course. It's a formula. It's okay if you don't understand where you got it from. You just, and then, you know what? Next year, the following year, you might actually take the course where the formula is used from. So now you've seen the formula now. You have no idea what it's used for, but when you see it the next time, it won't be quite as scary. You say, oh, I can plot that function. And now I know where it's coming from. And so some of this is a preview of coming attractions in engineering. So again, whoops. Here's pi, so there's a pi function in Excel. So pi is your pi function in Excel. And so here we are. So the outputs, so this is equal to start a function 2 times pi, and it's a function, so you need the parentheses. Yeah?
You have C and D switched.
I have C and D switched. That's the beautiful thing about Excel. You set up the things, and then you can say, well, what would happen if it changed? As compared to doing it on your calculator, where it's a lot of work to just change things. So the numbers I have for C and D are switched? Okay, so my plot will look different, but it will hopefully be plotting right. So we can fix that in a minute. Thank you for letting me know. 2 times pi divided by B. Where's B? It's B7. So we can just click on B7 and there we're going. And now we got to switch these. So let's just type it. All right. So outputs. Oh, that wasn't our output. I put it in the wrong place. How can we move it? You just grab the box and drag it down. You don't want to copy it, because when you copy it, you're going to change the formula. B7 will become B8, and now it's referring to C and not B. So you can cut and paste. If you cut and paste, the formulas don't change. Or you can just drag it down. And this was, what was this? This was your period, yep. And then dt, the time spacing. So when we go to plot it, we're basically, how accurately are we calculating our time? That is dt. What's the step in time that we're going to do? I'll try not to break into Mary Poppins. So basically, every time step is 0.047. So therefore, in one period, in one cycle up, down, back up again, that will be 20 points. 20 points, oh, that will look pretty when we plot it. If you do 4 points, it looks all jaggedy, 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 Jew. Anyways, smooth. If you have 20 points, it's going to create a pretty smooth plot. So it's equal to our period divided by 20. And it's 0.1 just because we're not showing very many decimal places. If we right click, this is where we can add our comment, insert comment. And Mike says 20 points per period. So now you have a red box here that basically when you put your mouse over it, it will show you what the comment is. And we want to be like Mike. And again, this is in seconds, and seconds units are important. All right, how can we make inputs line up over in the middle, like we have it here? No, it's actually not lined up in the middle. Anyways, we can highlight the cells and paint them pretty. Again, with the paint thing, we can draw a box around it. So inputs, outputs. We could, one thing you can do is merge and center. I don't like doing that. Just because now we can't just select this entire column because in the middle of it there's a wide column. So it makes it look pretty, but if you're trying to deal with columns later on, it'll just get confused. So I don't like merge and center. It does make it look pretty if you want to do it. But I generally don't like doing that just because it destroys your column. We got to protect these endangered columns. It's just computer things. So basically now we're getting the big deal. Time. What is our time? Well, our time we want to start at t0. So t0 is located at B10. We probably should include some labels as well. So this is our time in seconds and y in meters. Our initial time is t0, so it's equal to t0. We can just click on the number. We can move our cursor on the number. Do we need to use absolute referencing? No, not right now. Normally when we're referring to things in here, we want to use absolute referencing. But since we're not going to copy the initial time, we don't need to use absolute referencing. So T0. All right, the next time, what's the next time going to be? The next time is always the previous time plus dt, or step in time. So it's equal to the previous time, and the previous time is always above it. So you don't need to use absolute referencing. So we need to add the dt, which is located in B14. But we want to use absolute referencing. How do you do absolute referencing? What's the magic button?
Money.
Yeah, dollar signs, money in the bank. If you have a PC, the magic button is F4. When you hit F4, it adds money to.
Whoa. Whoa, that's awesome.
Well, in the book. You might have skipped that part. If you say, oh, this says that B won't change and 14 won't change. If we want B to change and not 14 to change, we press it again. Now we have dollar signs just on the 14. Press it again, we have dollar signs just on the B. Press it again, we're back to where we started from. Those are the only ways you can put dollar signs. But we want money in the bank all over the place. That is, we always want to use B and we always want to use 14 because the step in time is always in the cell. It's not going anywhere. Wait a minute. Oh, I thought it was 4:45. What happened? Just reading the clock on. Because of the reflection, long hand looks short. All right, so this is a very fine number. And since we use the dollar signs, we can go up and just drag it down. Whee! I don't know how many we want, I just weed it down. The precise wee amount. The other thing we could have done is copy and then shift page down. That's a long week. When you're holding down the shift key, you get, and then paste, shift insert. Control C is copy. Control V is paste. So that is our time. So all of our times are always the previous cell, the cell above it, plus B14, which is always the dt. So initial time we can do relative. The previous time is also relative, but the step in time is absolute. It's always going to be that cell right there. And I did remember to put the blank column here to make life easy. All right, what's y equal to? A big formula. What do we start formulas with?
Equals.
Yes. Or you can start with plus. If the plus key is closer to where you're at. And so it's equal to A, which is B6, F4 to make it money, and then times. If you don't put times, it'll just be confused. So we know, because we are human, and we've seen this before, that A sine is not a sin, it's A times sine. Excel doesn't know that. You have to speak in its language, otherwise it doesn't so. So it's A times sin, and then parentheses of B, and then F4 to make it money, and then times T. What do we do times T? Well, it says BT, but we're not looking for but. We want is B times, where's T? The T is always on the cell directly to the left. So the time for this value of y is right here. So therefore, we don't use absolute referencing. It's always just to the left. Plus C is over here. Plus D is over there, and we also want absolute referencing. So this is A, and then color-coded nicely, so it's A plus B times T plus C plus D. That's your function. It's also on the other sheet. Now, magic. If you hit Control and Enter, rather than just Enter, you stay in the same cell. Why is that cool? Well, Well, the next thing we want to do is copy the cell all the way down here. We're now in the cell, so we can easily copy it. How do we easily copy it? All the way down. This magic fill box, double click. Do it again. Think about it, nothing else. We go to the fill box order, double click. And then all the way down to the bottom. It knows how far to copy it.
That still works like that. It works on
It works on a Mac? Even?
Oh, it works on that.
Okay.
It just works.
It just works. Not everything works on a Mac because it's a program written by Microsoft for the Mac. So if you're talking about numbers, then it would work on a Mac. But Microsoft doesn't always play fair. So again, your A is absolute. And and your time step, your time is always to the left, and so it's a relative. And then over here, we didn't use absolute referencing over here because we're not copying. Anytime you're going to copy a cell, you want to use absolute references. If it's not going to be copied, you don't need to use absolute referencing. All right, let's get this out of the way. You might need that eventually. All right, names. Is this easier to understand what's going on? Do you think this is easier or that is easier? Which formula is easier to understand? This one or that one? That one. You like this one? They're both the same thing, but what we want to do is naming. Naming is helpful because naming allows your formulas to easily be read. Actually, they're black. But anyways. I was going to click on here and show you how to use names. So this is in chapter 4. Is it in chapter 4 or is it a different book? You had a little bit of naming. Actually in chapter 1. I need to change, that was based on the old book. So how do we go about creating names? We can select a region which we have numbers and the corresponding names. Then we go into formulas, create from selection, and ask, where are the names? And it makes a guess. The names are on the left. Do you like that guess?
Yes.
Yes, because the names are on the left. On the left are the names, and there are the cells. You don't want to name the cell, and so you hit OK. So now when we go in this cell is now called A. Go one down, the cell is called B. Go down one more, the cell is called? It's not C. It's C underscore. Because C means something in Excel. C means use the entire column. So if you just type in C, it will select your entire column, and that's not what you want to do. So therefore, it calls it C underscore. What do you think the other one is going to be automatically an underscore? R, which is row. So row and column are automatically picked already. You can't use those. So C, it's C underscore, and then it's going to be D, T0. Oops, we forgot to do these two. Create from selection, left column. We're good to go. So now this is period, and that is DT. So what we did is we selected the range, and then under formulas we did create from selection, and then we chose the left column because that was actually where the names are, and then click, OK. So now, how do we get T to be in column E? Someone's computer is fighting back. If we want, so T, where is T? T is always in column E, so we can select the entire column E, and then come up in the name box, just type in T. So now when T is referring to the formula, what we're doing is we're referring to column E. This is corresponding. How would you do that? It would be always $E number. That means that E is always going to be used, but the 1, 2, 3 can change. So now the entire column E is T. And so now we can go into our formula. TS, the initial time is equal to, click on DT. If you click on a cell that's named, it automatically puts the name in it, not the value. So our initial time is DT. This is equal to the previous time, which there's nothing you can do about that. It always has to be EC, E whatever, plus, and then DT is right there. Oh shoot, my first one is wrong. This is equal to T0. So equals T0, DT, magic click box. All of our formulas are like that. And then what do we do for Y? It's equal to A times, parentheses, B times C underscore, no, B times what? T, and when you type in T, it shows that your T is going to be in this column. So always use whatever's in this column to the left or right of what your variable is. You couldn't just, you have to type in T all by yourself. Now T is that entire column, plus C, oops, plus D, and I forgot something. I forgot to add the sine function, which is helpful. And then Control Enter to keep us in the same cell. Double click on the magic fill box. And now our formula is the same in every single cell, and it's very easy to understand. So when you're actually trying to figure out what's going on, it's easy to figure out why your formula is not quite right. Both formulas give you the same answer. This is going to be a lot easier to figure out why you're getting the wrong answer. I actually had a student teach me about, I knew you could label individual cells. I had a student actually teach me, oh, you can actually label columns too, and that makes Excel so much more attractive. You can actually read the formulas. Okay, now we want to, yes?
Oh, could you explain what this C underscore came from again?
Again, we selected this region and said create names from this region.
Got it.
But C,
Is there already
the C, sorry, you type in C up here, and select your entire column. So since C is already taken, Excel says, oh, I know, I'll help you out. I'll just call it C underscore. So it's Excel helping you out, magically calling it C underscore.
Okay, so it doesn't freak.
So it doesn't freak itself out.
Got it.
And it took me a year to figure that out. All right, now we need to plot. How do we plot this?
Insert.
Okay, good. So we're in our region here. We have a blank column right here. So if you're anywhere in this region, now you can go into Insert. And that's page layout. Insert. Now, do we want to use a line plot or do we want to use a scatter plot?
Line.
No. So we're looking at our plot. Where's our plot? Our plot has a line in it, so we want to use a line plot. No.
Scatter.
We want to use a scatter. Whenever you have numbers on your x-axis and numbers on the y-axis, that's a scatter plot. If you have labels on the x-axis and numbers on the y-axis, that's a line plot. This could be apples, bananas, pears, kumquats on a line plot. It's fine. It doesn't care. On a scatter plot, it does care. It can't plot kumquats. Maybe you can do apples, but not kumquats. They're just too weird. So we go into Insert. We want to scatter, and we want to do a scatter with lines. So line plot is numbers versus text. Scatter is numbers versus numbers. And so in this course, like 97% of the plots we'll be making are scatter plots. Click on the magic button. It magically appears. So you have less wiggles?
Yeah.
So depending on how far you copy down your T, you'll get more and more wiggles. I went crazy on my copying, and so I get lots of wiggles. All right, so now we have a beautiful plot. What's missing? So, as I had said, Excel is adding the C underscore, differentiate between column, and then you still have to do multiplication, selecting other column G. All right. So, now what's different here? Now we have label, right? We've created a plot. We now need to label our axes with the function and units. Function and units, and then a reasonable title. So, double click, single click. Plot of y equals a sine b times t plus c plus d. So, under to add the labels, you go to layout, axis titles, horizontal is below, so this is t in seconds. So again, it's axis titles, vertical axis, rotated title, this is y. Y of t in meters, capital Y. All right, so now we have axis to our labels, or label our axis. What is this here? That's the legend. What is the point of the legend? What's the legend on a map do? It explains what each line on the graph means. How many lines do we have on this graph? We have one line on our graph. We don't really need to explain what that one line means. We can just delete our legend. And then we can, if we right-click on these, right-click in Excel, like right-click does about 85% of what you need to do. And we want to, what do we want to do? Format our axis. And we want our axis to be low. And now our numbers are on the bottom. Anyways, we'll talk a little bit more about that in future days. All right, so now clicker question. We are now, this is what we did in the past, this is the first slide. Now we want to plot a new function, our z function. And z is the function of x, and it's a2x squared plus a1x plus a0. How are we going to set up our spreadsheet? So, in what region are we going to put x? Are we going to put it up here? Are we going to put it over here? Are we going to put it here? Or are we going to put it here? Where is x going? So where would we put this is our function, where would we put the data for x? We're choosing region A, B, C, or D. When we're organizing our spreadsheet, where does it go? All right, 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Do we have 24 people in today? 24. Where's everybody? I guess that's why I'm videotaping it. C is the right input. the input to the function goes where C is. So in this function, T was the input to our thing, and so T is the input. In this function, X is the input, so X goes right there. Where would Z go? We're now talking about Z. Where is Z going? In region A, B, C, or D?
Z goes in the back.
So where would we type in the values for Z? In here. All right, 3, 2, 1. 50-50. All right, what were we plotting here? Y is equal to, so Y is located on the left of the equal sign. Z is also located on the left of the equal sign. So Z goes where Y goes, which is in D. Things that don't change go in B. All right, last chance. Where would we type in A1? In A, B, C, or D? A1 is right here on our function. What region would we type that in? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. All right, we got it. That's it for today. We only have 5 more minutes. Took a little longer than usual. That's the end. So this is available on Blackboard. This lecture will be recorded for the viewing audience. It should show up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yay.